Hello, my little Luxes. Welcome back to another Scary Stories My Father Told Me. And I'm your host, charsielux. But today I am not telling you a scary story. I am once again telling you another Irish fairy tale. And this one I have found a very cute, fun legend to share with all of you. And this one involves fairies who give a great gift upon a man who has the bad luck to have a deformity. So please come gather around the campfire with me as I share the Legend of Knockgrafton with you, and you can find out the secrets of the fairies that live within that land. The Legend of Knockgrafton. There once was a poor man who lived in the fertile glen of Arlo, at the foot of the gloomy Gaelty Mountains, and he had a great hump on his back. He looked just as if his body had been rolled up and placed upon his shoulders, and his head was pressed down with the weight, so much that his chin, when he was sitting, used to rest upon his knees for support. The country people were rather shy of meeting him in any lonesome place, for though, poor creature, he was as harmless and as inoffensive as a newborn infant, yet his deformity was so great that he scarcely appeared to be a human creature, and some ill-minded persons had set strange stories about him afloat. He was said to have a great knowledge of herbs and charms, but certain it was that he had a mighty skillful hand in plaiting straw and rushes into hats and baskets, which was the way he made his livelihood. Lushmore, for that was the nickname put upon him, by reason of his always wearing a sprig of the fairy cap, or Lushmore, the foxglove, in his little straw hat, would ever get a higher penny for his plaited work than anyone else, and perhaps that was the reason why someone, out of envy, had circulated the strange stories about him. Be that as it may, it happened that he was returning one evening from the pretty town of Cahir towards Cabag, and as little Lushmore walked very slowly on account of the great hump upon his back, it was quite dark when he came to the old moat of Knockgrafton, which stood on the right-hand side of the road. Tired and weary was he, and no ways comfortable in his own mind at thinking how much farther he had to travel, and that he should be walking all the night. So he sat down under the moat to rest himself, and began looking mournfully enough upon the moon. Presently there rose a wild strain of unearthly melody upon the ear of little Lushmore. He listened, and he thought that he had never heard such ravishing music before. It was like the sound of many voices, each mingling and blending with the other, so strangely that they seemed to be one, though all singing different strains. And the words of the song were these: Delon, Delord, Delon, Demord, Delon, Demord. When there would be a moment's pause, and then the round of melody went on again. Lushmore listened attentively, scarcely drawing his breath lest he might lose the slightest note. He now plainly perceived that the singing was within the moat, and though at first it had charmed him so much, he began to get tired of hearing the same round sung over and over so often without any change. So availing himself of the pause, when the Delon, Demord had been sung 3 times, he took up the tune and raised it with the words Augusta Cadine, and then went on singing with the voices inside of the moat, Delon, Demord, finishing the melody when the pause again came with Augusta Cadine. The fairies within Knockgrafton, for the song was a fairy melody, when they heard this addition to the tune, were so much delighted that with instant resolve it was determined to bring the mortal among them, whose musical skill so far exceeded theirs, and little Lushmore was conveyed into their company with the rushing speed of a whirlwind. Glorious to behold was the sight that burst upon him as he came down through the moat, twirling round and round with the lightness of a straw to the sweetest music that kept time to his motion. The greatest honor was then paid him, for he was put above all the musicians, and he had servants tending upon him, and everything to his heart's content, and a hearty welcome to all, and in short, he was made as much of as if he had been the first man in the land. Presently, Lushmore saw a great consultation going forward among the fairies, and notwithstanding all their civility, he felt very much frightened, until one stepping out from the rest came up to him and said, "Lushmore, Lushmore, doubt not nor deplore, for the hump which you bore on your back is no more. Look down on the floor and view it, Lushmore." When these words were said, poor little Lushmore felt himself so light and so happy that he thought he could have bounded at one jump over the moon, like the cow in the history of the cat and the fiddle, and he saw with inexpressible pleasure his hump tumble down upon the ground from his shoulders. He then tried to lift up his head, and he did so with becoming caution, fearing that he might knock it against the ceiling of the grand hall where he was. He looked round and round again with greatest wonder and delight upon everything, which appeared more and more beautiful, and overpowered at beholding such a resplendent scene. His head grew dizzy, and his eyesight became dim. At last he fell into a sound sleep, and when he awoke, he found that it was broad daylight, the sun shining brightly and the birds singing sweetly, and that he was lying just at the foot of the moat of Knockgrafton, with the cows and the sheep grazing peacefully round about him. The first thing Lushmore did, after saying his prayers, was to put his hand behind to feel for his hump, but no sign of one was there on his back, and he looked at himself with great pride, for he had now become a well-shaped, dapper little fellow, and more than that, found himself in a full suit of new clothes, which he concluded the fairies had made for him. Towards Kabah he went, stepping out as lightly and springing up at every step, as if he had been all his life a dancing master. Not a creature who met Lushmore knew him without his hump, and he had a great work to persuade everyone that he was the same man. In truth, he was not, so far as outward appearance went. Of course, it was not long before the story of Lushmore's hump got about, and a great wonder was made of it. Through the country, for miles round, it was the talk of everyone, high and low. One morning, as Lushmore was sitting contented enough at his cabin door, up came an old woman to him and asked him if he could direct her to Kabah. "I need give you no directions, my good woman," said Lushmore, "for this is Kabah. And whom may you want here?" "I have come," said the woman, "out of Desi's country, in the country of Waterford, looking after one Lushmore, who, I have heard tell, had his hump taken off by the fairies. For there is a son of a gossip of mine who has got a hump on him that will be his death, and maybe if he could use the same charm as Lushmore, the hump may be taken off him. And now I have told you the reason of my coming so far. 'Tis to find out about this charm, if I can." Lushmore, who was ever a good-natured little fellow, told the woman all the particulars, how he had raised the tune for the fairies at Knockgrafton, how his hump had been removed from his shoulders, and how he had got a new suit of clothes into the bargain. The woman thanked him very much, and then went away quite happy and easy in her own mind. When she came back to her gossip's house in the country of Waterford, she told her everything that Lushmore had said, and they put the little hump-backed man, who was a peevish and cunning creature from his birth, upon a car and took him all the way across the country. It was a long journey, but they did not care for that, so the hump was taken from off him, and they brought him just at nightfall and left him under the old moat of Knockgrafton. Jack Madden, for that was the humped-backed man's name, had not been sitting there long, when he heard the tune going on within the moat much sweeter than before, for the fairies were singing in the way Lushmore had settled their music for them, and the song was going on, "De-long, de-mold, de-long, de-mold, de-long, de-mold, Augusta Cadine," without ever stopping. Jack Madden, who was in a great hurry to get quit of his hump, never thought of waiting until the fairies had done, or watching for a fit opportunity to raise the tune higher again than Lushmore had. So having heard them sing it over 7 times without stopping, out he bawls, never minding the time or the humor of the tune, or how he could bring his words improperly. Angus da Cadine, Angus da Hinna, thinking that if one day was good, 2 were better, and that if Lushmore had 1 new suit of clothes given him, he should have 2. No sooner had the words passed his lips than he was taken up and whisked into the moat with great force, and the fairies came crowding round about him with great anger, screeching and screaming and roaring out, "Who spoiled our tune? Who spoiled our tune?" And one stepped up to him above all the rest and said, Jack Madden, your words came so bad in, the tune we felt glad in, this castle you're bad in, that your life we may sadden. Here's 2 humps for Jack Madden. And 20 of the strongest fairies brought Lushmore's hump and put it down upon poor Jack's back, over his own, where it became fixed as firmly as if it was nailed on with 20 penny nails, by the best carpenter that ever drove one. Out of their castle they then kicked him. And in the morning, when Jack Madden's mother and her gossip came to look after their little man, they found him half dead, lying at the foot of the moat, with the other hump upon his back. Well, to be sure, how they did look at each other, but they were afraid to say anything, lest a hump might be put upon their own shoulders. Home they brought the unlucky Jack Madden with them, as downcast in their hearts and their looks as ever 2 gossips were. And what through the weight of his other hump and the long journey he died soon after, leaving, they say, his heavy curse to anyone who would go to listen to the fairy tunes again. As always, my little Luxes, I hope you enjoyed that Irish fairy tale. I really enjoyed that one. Thank you once again for joining me for Scary Stories My Father Told Me. And like I said, I greatly enjoyed The Legend of Knockgrafton. Lushmore is a very special character. This one, of course, it's the same idea as giving moral stories, and this one was very important. The fact that Lushmore was just so pure of heart. He never went to this mort with the intention of getting anything out of it. He just happened by luck to be in the right place at the right time. And because of his beautiful voice and his beautiful heart on top of that, he was given a good gift. And then you have towards the end of the tale, which is the part of the moral story, is the idea of Jack Madden. And of course, he was a dishonest man. He thought he was cunning and everything, but was very rude and rammy. And of course, you can't do that with the Fae world, and especially with fairies. They were very insulted. So he wasn't given a blessing like what Lushmore was. He was given a curse instead. I like this story due to the fact that Lushmore is given something good, and he's a good person that does good deeds. And even though there were some nasty people spreading horrible rumors about him, that eventually when he met the fairies, they were able to make his outsides match his insides. And it's kind of the same idea that they did to Jack Madden. Not only was he to have the burden of his original hump, he also received Lushmore's hump as well. So it was double the burden, and of course he shortly died after that. This is kind of a weird tale of you reap what you sow, what comes around goes around. And on top of that, it's the idea of your insides match your outsides. It's such a weird thing to say, but it's in the eye of the beholder, or beauty in the eye of the beholder type of idea. So it is a really neat tale to have a good ending for Lushmore. I mean, obviously, Jack Madden didn't have a happy ending, but that was the moral to the story. It was to be a good person, to be honest, and that good things come to those that are honest and good people. So let me know, what did you think of this tale? Did you like this one? And I think this one has been one of my favorite ones so far. And I mean, I think I say that about all of them. I love fairy tales, so I thought this one was a good one to end out the month of March with. And thank you once again. And like I said, I hope you enjoyed this tale. And remember, I am the afterlife of the party. But I would love for you to join me in the afterlife of the party. And I am so happy those of you here with me on Patreon are a part of the afterlife of the party. And on the screen, you can see a shout out to all of my fellow Patreon members and a special shout out to all of my Ultimate Luxes. So thank you so much to Chris Bruner, Bishop, and Joshua Sanchez. Thank you for being Ultimate Luxes with me. And remember, your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And I hope that no matter what you do in your life, that you do good deeds, because you don't want those pesky little fairies to add a hump onto your shoulders. Until next time, have a Luxy Charms kind of day. Boy!